Okay, perfect. So good evening and welcome to this evening's webinar, which is entitled, as you probably all know, Operating Department Practitioners, How to Build a Successful Career in the UK. This is the collaborative webinar between Medimatch and BUPA Cromwell Hospital. As you may have just heard, the webinar is being recorded. So if you don't want to appear in the video, please turn your video off now, and then you won't appear in the recording. For those who don't know, Medimatch is an exciting talent match technology platform where we flip the script on traditional recruitment. Our platform allows healthcare professionals to create a profile in under 4 minutes and have hospitals apply to them, as opposed to spending hours searching for and applying to jobs. You can sign up right now at medimatch.io and you'll have job matches provided to you within hours. The link will be provided in the chat function on the right for you to sign up. Today's webinar is hosted by Mehn Lynch, an anesthetic team leader at BUPA Cromwell Hospital. Mehn will no doubt talk you through his experience, work history, and how he got to the level he is at today. But his presentation to you will be focused on how to go about building a successful career as an ODP in the UK. Any questions are, of course, welcome. However, I invite you to type them into the chat box, which you'll see at the bottom of your screen as one of the options there. And we will have a question and answer segment of the webinar at the end of Mehn's presentation. So without further ado, over to you, Mehn.
There we go. Hello there. Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me. Thank you for taking the time out of your Sunday evening to join the webinar. And so thank you for the introduction. My name is Mehn. So I am a operating department practitioner by trade. So I've been in this career for quite a bit of time now. Please do apologize for the fact that you can see the office. I'm in the work office. I've just finished doing a procedure about 20 minutes ago. So on with the slide. So building a successful career as an operating department practitioner, or ODP as what most people will call, not to be confused with outpatients department. So the focus points throughout the presentation. So I will talk you through my journey of my actual healthcare journey in general, and then more specifically the parts of me being an ODP, the essential skills for an ODP in the UK, the educational progression that can happen with being an ODP, the other career progressions that there are, and then some helpful hints for you if you are thinking about becoming an ODP, or if you already are a ODP and want to progress further. So my journey. So I hope you can all see the presentation. So my healthcare journey started well before my London South Bank University time. So I initially started off as a hospital porter many years ago, and then I trained and qualified as a pharmaceutical advisor. And then a family friend of mine said about the ODP course, and he said, you know, why don't you join? Why don't you give it a go? At that point, I hadn't even known what an ODP was, much like what many people outside the hospital world and nursing world, they might not know. So we are a small profession in terms of our age. So we've been around for about 75 years or so. So our main areas are working in theatres itself. So I started my training at London South Bank University, which is one of the best universities for learning operating department practice in London. I done a 3-year and ODP course. Whilst at London South Bank, you then get paired up with various different hospitals throughout your training. So for my adults part of my training, I was paired up with Lewisham Hospital. It's a NHS District General Hospital over in South London. I also then got the opportunity to go over to Great Ormond Street for some time during my training to learn my paediatric aspects of being an ODP. After I qualified, I then remained at Lewisham for a couple of years as a band 5. So that was really just to hone in on my skills that I'd learned there as a student, and just to really, you know, really get that passion, and then also just to practice all what I had learned, because even once you finished your training, you don't know it all. No one ever knows it all, and there's still a lot more that you can learn and progress through. So I was at Lewisham for a while, and then I moved over from the NHS into the private sector. So I worked for a hospital called the London Clinic for a I moved over there originally as a band 5, so as a junior anaesthetic practitioner. And then I was there for around about 4 years. In between, I also done some agency work. So the good thing about doing the agency work is that it allowed me to have the experience of other hospitals and see what they're doing well, what they might not be doing well, and then be able to take that knowledge back to my current hospital and be able to share that with my colleagues. After being at the London Clinic for, I think it was around about 7 months, actually. An old colleague of mine is also on this webinar. It was around about 7 months that I was at the London Clinic, and then I got promoted to a senior anaesthetic practitioner. So within that role, it was still clinically based. So I was more inside the theatres, but then also learning skills such as allocating staff, learning about equipment, finances, and budgeting within the department and so on. So I was there for around about 4 years, and then I was approached for a new position, for a new adventure, and that new adventure led me to Cromwell Theatres to become the anaesthetic lead. So I've been at Cromwell for around about 6 months now. It's been a fantastic move. It's a journey that I always had planned to do, and it worked out quite well, and I managed to do it quite prematurely in terms of years, which worked out fantastically. So at the Cromwell, so I'm the anaesthetic lead for theatres. I have a staff of around 13 practitioners that I manage. So it's ensuring we deliver our patient safety amongst everything else, ensuring that we reach our goals for the hospital, ensuring that we stick to BUPA values as well. It involves a lot of non-technical skills, such as people management, which is, the hardest skill to learn, I think, for a lot of people. When you're in theatres, there's many different people that you will come across. There's many different multidisciplinary team members as well that you build a part of the team in. So throughout that, I then featured in a couple of articles as well throughout my career. So I was featured as London South Bank University's Alumni of the Month a couple of years ago. I guess the beauty of having a name like mine that's so unique is that when you type me in on Google, everything comes up about me. So you'll see a few articles if you put my name in there. So I was Alumni of the Month. I've been involved in heavy recruitment drives for my hospitals as well in the past. So for Lewisham and Greenwich Hospital, I was done a really big recruitment drive for them a few years back. So that's really me in terms of my background and my history, to be fair. So going on to the next slide, the essential skills for an ODP. So being an ODP, you have really the pleasure of being there for people, being there for your patients in what could be their darkest hour. And you have the opportunity to be able to turn that into as positive of an experience as what they can. So it does involve a lot of technical skills. Amongst all things, you need to have a passion for the job. Now, when I say a passion for the job, I don't mean a passion for working long days. I don't mean a passion for getting paid. You need to have a genuine human passion in you. You need to care for your patients and really want to come into work each day and give them the best that you can and ensure that they have the best outcomes that you can as well. You need to be a team player. So when I say team player, when you're in the operating theatre, there are many different people that you will be a part of a larger team with. So you have the ODPs, you have the other nursing staff, you may have radiographers. Of course, you've got your consultant surgeons and your consultant anaesthetists as well. So you really do need to be a team player to be able to get the best outcomes. So your communication is key. Organization skills and time management, like any profession, like anything in life, you need to be organized and you need to have good time management. The reason why I say organization skills and time management are a really important skill to be able to have is that working in healthcare, one thing to always remember is that every decision that you make has an impact on your patient. So it could be a negative impact, it could be a positive impact, but there is always a patient at the end of every decision that we make. So our organizational skills and being organized actually helps you, with your patient outcomes. It could be something as simple as ensuring that your anesthetic machine is ready on time for the patient brief. Now, that is from a safety perspective, but then also if you don't have your items ready that you need, the patient is going to be impacted because their surgery may get delayed. So the smallest things, really make a difference to the patient journey and how you can help facilitate that being the best journey that it can be. Your communication and patient advocacy. So you are an advocate for the patient. Now, there is the old saying that treat your patients like what you would treat your family members. Me, I am a fan of that saying, but more than ever, I just think treat your patients how you would like to be treated yourself. When we are in hospital, patients can be really scared, they can be really nervous, they're going through a really tough time in their life. And even the small little bits that we have the power to do as ODPs makes a difference. So when I mean small bits, let's say if the patient's cold, giving them a nice warm blanket. Or if they're going through a really tough time, saying to them, it'll be okay and I'm here. All of these small things end up having a major impact. And that's how it is. Self-care is another bit. So as much as you need to care about your patients, you need to care about yourself as well. So you need to be able to have those rest times. You need to be able to, find something other than work that you enjoy as well, just for your own mental health. It can be really taxing, both mentally and physically, working in theatres and being an ODP. And you need to be able to have a space where you can exit out of that. The hours can sometimes be long, but it's a good, rewarding job. I say self-care myself, but I'm working here on a Sunday. So my self-care day was yesterday. I spent all day just laying in bed and just relaxing. I played some PlayStation, which I hadn't done in a while. So, self-care is very important. So ODPs in the UK. So ODPs are considered as operating theatre specialists. So when I say operating theatre specialists, it's the fact that our training is solely derived around operating theatres. So there are 3 areas that the training comprises of. So that's being in anesthetics, surgical scrub, and then also recovery. So just to give you a little bit of background on what a day might entail for each of these specialities. So in anesthetics, you are there supporting the anesthetic consultant for the procedure. You could be doing things such as monitoring the patient, doing some cannulation as well. You are continuously there throughout the beginning to end phase of that patient journey when they're in theatres. You will no doubtly be one of the first people that says hello to the patient, and you will be one of the first faces that that patient sees when you wake up. In surgical scrub, you will be a scrub practitioner, is more of a blanket term that we use nowadays. So for surgical scrub, you are in charge of the sterile field. You are the gatekeeper of that sterile field. So when you are operating, we have our instrument trays, and it is a real skill to be able to, number one, make sure that all of your trays are in order to enable you to be able to pass the surgeon the instrument that they need at the most crucial parts during the procedure, but then also to be the gatekeeper of the sterile field and ensure that no one walks into your trays, for example, ensure that no external contaminants reach that tray with the instruments that is being used on a patient. In recovery or post-operative care as well, that is sometimes known as, in recovery, you will be monitoring the patient intensely. So this is when they've just come out of theatres. So you'll be doing things such as pain assessments, and then also giving painkillers dependent on that pain assessment that you've done. You will learn skills in airway management, how to remove airways and so on and so forth. So within your training, you will cover all 3 of these areas. But then once you've qualified, the choice is really up to you in terms of what areas you want to do. So you could be a jack of all trades or a master of one. I myself specifically chose anesthetics as my specialty that I love. I also do a little bit of surgical scrub in the NHS, but anesthetics is where my heart is. And it's quite nice to be able to have that option and to be able to dip your toes in all 3 of the areas during your training to realize then which bit you want to go into. You don't need to specialize in just one area. I have many colleagues that are what we call dual rolled. So for example, they might do anesthetics and then also do recovery, or they might do anesthetics and scrub and recovery. You know, it really depends on what hospital you're in and what you want to do yourself and whether or not they can actually, you know, facilitate that within the hospital. So the educational progression. So as an ODP, when you first join at hospital, you will go through a probationary period. So that's whether you join as anesthetics, scrub, or recovery. You could join straight from university. You would then become a band 5, or what would also be known as a junior ODP. So the next step up from that would then be becoming a band 6, which would be a senior ODP. And then after that, you can become a band 7, speciality lead, or a advanced practitioner. So band 7 is really where your entry level to management begins. And then after that, the sky is the limits. I mean, you can go on to become a theatre manager. You can go on to even become a divisional manager. You know, the progression is really up to you in terms of what you see for yourself and what you see yourself doing and what goals you want to set for yourself to achieve. Other career opportunities. So although we train in theatres, there are other areas that you can also branch out as an ODP. So you can become a specialty lead. So for example, you could become a lead in anesthetics like myself. You can become a lead in surgical scrub or a lead in recovery. You can also then branch out into education. So you can become part of your hospital's education team for junior members of staff, for example, and students. You can even branch out and become lecturers. I've got friends that have become university lecturers, you know, after training and working in hospital for a few years, and then they realize that education was their calling, and they're now teaching operating department practice. There's other areas outside of theatres, such as becoming a resuscitation officer, so being part of the team that respond to emergencies all over the hospital. There are advanced practitioner roles, so roles such as the physician's associate, surgical care practitioner, or surgical first assistant. You can branch out to endoscopy. So there are ODPs who are endoscopy practitioners. You can even branch out into radiology as well. So really being an ODP, it leaves you so many avenues that you can go down. So you can just remain an ODP throughout your career, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Or if you want to change a change of environment, you know, those doors are open. But again, it's up to what you want to do for yourself and where you want to go and what you find that your passion is in. Some helpful hints for building your CV. So as a anesthetic lead, I am heavily involved in the recruitment for anesthesia, of course, and things that I look out for when I'm looking at a CV to really show that I've got a good candidate is the fact of them not only having their basic courses, but also showing what courses they've done additionally. So when I mean additional courses, I mean extra courses that could help build upon your knowledge base, that can show the potential, you know, employer that you're really keen and you have additional skills that you can also bring to the table. So courses such as doing advanced life support, immediate life support, any airway management courses. There are so many different like webinars like this one itself that are educational webinars. There's so many different journals that you can read and so on and so forth. But I really look out for people that are doing the most, you know, the people that you can really see enjoy what they do. I have a thing in life called the 5 Ps. So the 5 Ps, prior preparation prevents poor performance. And that cannot be more true in operating department practice. You need to always be prepared. And the 5 Ps can be assigned to your daily duties, ensuring that your anesthetic room is all set up in the morning, ensuring that your surgical instruments are counted correctly, ensuring that you are set up for receiving your patient in recovery. It can count for your personal life as well, you know, being prepared for things. It can count for you arriving at work on time. That preparation starts at you checking when your first train is, for example. And that poor performance is missing that first train purposely or because you've done something else and then not being able to be there on time. You know, so 5 Ps is continuously going through my head. And it's something that I was taught by one of my mentors many years ago, and it has never left me. You need to set real expectations as well. So I'm very fortunate for the career progression that I've managed to achieve, but it doesn't go without saying that I also have had setbacks throughout my career progressions as well. And you will always have these setbacks, and set a realistic expectation. You know, everyone wants to dream, everybody wants to, you know, be the best that they can, and don't be hard on yourself with that. So what I mean by is, don't say to yourself, if I've not done this by this, then I'm a failure. You know, failure comes, but then also it's a matter of you doing the utmost to be able to accept that this might have gone your way, but you have the strength to be able to continue and carry on and get back at it, and then, you know, win it the next round. Learning on the job and at home. So nobody knows everything. You know, even myself, I am learning new things every single day. But then that learning doesn't just finish when you're at work. You know, there is so much additional learning resources that you can be looking at when you're at home. You can be going, like I said previously, you know, you could be looking at online journals, the AAGBI, for example, because I'm anesthetics. There's so many different things that you can access to be able to improve your knowledge base and improve the outcomes for your patient. Always ask questions, because no one knows it all. It is far better for you to ask a question than for you to act on something that you don't know. Now, specifically with this really is an important point for being an ODP, because as an ODP, you are a registered practitioner. You will register with the Healthcare Professional Council, the HCPC, as we call them as well. And within that, you have a scope of practice that you must adhere to. So always ask questions, because if you are doing something that is out of your scope of practice, you may come up in hot water. You need to stick to your remit and learn. There's no such thing as a silly question. It doesn't matter how many years you've been in operating department practice, or how many months, or how many days. Always ask and always learn. So at this point, I'll open the floor and answer some of your lovely questions. I can't.
Joe. Hi, Mehn. Thank you so much. That was absolutely brilliant. I think we might have lost Joe there on the mic. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, I just had to take off my headset because I thought it might have been me.
No, don't worry. I think it's Joe's headset. Thank you so much, Mehn. That was absolutely brilliant. There's a lot of questions that have come through, so I will start by asking the first few. So we have got, obviously we know that you've just covered courses and also good courses that stand out, but we have got the question of, what are the best courses you can recommend for ODPs?
Personally, so I would recommend going, well, first, I guess it depends on what area you want to go into. So for example, if you're wanting to just go into ODP at the beginning, let's say you haven't actually, you know, done the training yet, there's so many different online courses. There's WebMDs. There's also the College of Operating Department Practice, and basically they have an online website that has various different modules that you can study and that you can learn a lot of things from. They continuously update it as well. It's a really good source of knowledge. There's also guidelines to look up. So for example, again, sticking with anesthetics, there's the AAGBI. Their guidelines are, you know, they set the UK standards. So it is always good to be able to, you know, catch up on those guidelines and look at what they've got. In London specifically, the guys in St Thomas Hospital, they run airway management courses each year as well. They are free for students, and then I believe if you're qualified, it's a small amount of money. It's not too expensive. So, I mean, to answer the question, really, the courses depend on what area you're in,
yeah,
and whether or not you actually, you know, want to be able to do that additional learning. But I would definitely say that you don't have to be traveling all around the UK to do courses. There's so much online material that you can source from the comfort of your home.
Amazing, brilliant. Thank you, Mehn. What do you like most about being an ODP?
The golden question. So what I like most is the patient connection. So being an ODP, and particularly in anesthetics, again, when the patient comes down to theatre, they're very, they could be very upset, they can be very nervous. Some want to talk, some don't want to talk. And you've really got about maybe 3 to 5 minutes to make that person comfortable with you. And that is the best part about it, because that's when you really show your caring side and your human nature. So I enjoy it when my patients come down and just before we go off to sleep, they smile. That's the best thing for me. I mean, I've got a joke that I tell my patients and that all of my colleagues would have heard as well. And I always say to them, if you dream of the lottery numbers, when you wake up, let me know and we'll go halves. And, the smile that brings, it is never let me down for all these years.
No, it's good. That's good. Okay, next question. Do you have any advice you would offer to others in your profession?
Any advice for others in my profession? I would say stick to being patient focused. I think a lot of the times you can be so caught up in the moment and the environment and be very busy. And, it's very easy for standards to slip if you're not paying attention. So my biggest advice would be just for people to, in the profession, to stay focused, stay patient focused, because at the end of the day, like I said earlier on, everything that you do has some form of impact on your patient. So you want to make sure that you're having the most positive impact. Also, I would say ask questions and also give suggestions as well. I mean, when I was a band 5, I was continuously, speaking to my manager and saying, oh, I've seen this. Do you think that we could try this, for example? Looking at different ways to do things. Always have that drive and that spark.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thank you, Mehn. And next question. If you're coming from overseas, what do you recommend ODPs to do in the first few months of coming to the UK to adapt?
So the adaptation it can be a bit tricky depending on a couple of things. So when you're coming over as a ODP from overseas, it's not just about coming here to be an ODP, because there is that large personal side of life as well. You're going to be here for a set amount of hours in the day, but then you're also going to be home. I would say the best thing for someone to do is to be open-minded and also, make a keen interest to building relationships with people when you come over here, building friendships, building working relationships with people. Don't be afraid to not speak. I think sometimes it can be very daunting when you're in a new place, when you're in a new hospital, a new area, and you're seeing lots of new faces. But, just taking that brave step to just say hello to someone that you might not know, that you might have just walked past in the corridor a little bit, that makes a big difference. Yeah. And I think also, communicating as well, because again, it can be, quite a daunting experience if you've never been away from home before, for example. So speak to people and let people know, how you're feeling. Don't feel like you're on your own.
Yeah, very good advice. Very good advice. Do you have mentorship programs in your unit?
Yes, we do. So we do have mentorship programs. So we have a very good actually learning and development team here at Cromwell. So we have our mentorship programs. We have just launched a couple of we've just linked up with a couple of London universities as well, where we're offering mentorship programs for junior members of staff that they can go on to.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any good books to read in your field?
I would say that one of the best books to read is the Essentials in Operating Department Practice, but then also any any of your anatomy, physiology books, for example, what I would do is at the end of the chat, I will comment with a couple of books that I use as a student as well. So there is a operating department handbook. Forgive me for not remembering the author, but it was really good, really helpful.
Cool. Thank you. That would be great. Next question. What's the difference between a scrub nurse and an ODP? Are you doing the same job?
Yes, to doing the same job. So the difference in terms of a scrub nurse and ODP within theatres is just that you've taken two different educational routes to get to the same goal. So the role of a ODP working as a scrub member of staff versus a nurse working as a scrub member of staff, there's no difference between the two. So it can sometimes, seem a bit tricky. Why have you got two different professions that are doing the same thing? But there isn't a difference. The scope of practice is still the same. The things that you're going to be doing within theatres is still the same. It's just two different educational routes to get to the same place.
Okay, cool. Next question. How quickly can you become a senior ODP after starting as an ODP?
I think if you show the right grit, if you show the right dedication and want for it, I think that it can, be quite a quick progressional route. It does depend on the hospital that you're in, for example, whether or not there's a position available. But then, there's no time limit. So it's not our profession isn't one of those professions whereby after 6 months you automatically become a senior ODP. I've got friends that have been a band 5 ODP for 20 years of their career because it was their personal choice that they didn't want to, progress up and up and up with the change in responsibilities and so on. So there isn't really a time frame on it. It really depends on yourself, the hospital that you're in, and what you want to do. If you want to become a senior and you display the attributes of a senior to your management team and so on and so forth, then I'm sure that it won't be a long journey.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. Next question. Is it possible to train in ODP and get a job without doing the full nursing course? And where can one get such training from?
So there's a key difference in terms of the ODP training versus the nursing training. So if you want to train as an ODP, then your training is based within theatres. Whereas if you want to train as a nurse, then the scope of practice that's involved within your training is a lot broader. Whereas with an ODP, you're more specialized within theatres. So for example, if you wanted to work in the community, then nursing might be your best route. Whereas if you wanted to work in theatres, then ODP would be your best route. So they're two different courses that offer two different things.
Yeah. Okay, cool. What do you ask in interviews to candidates?
What do I ask? So I ask scenario questions. So based upon clinical knowledge, of course, because this is a clinical role that you would be applying for. So I ask questions that are just based upon what underpinning knowledge you have. So areas, things that are specific to anesthetics. I also ask questions about you and yourself, just in general, like how are you for one, because that's quite nice. One thing that I do say in my interviews is that this isn't the Dragon's Den or The Apprentice. So, it's a very relaxed environment. We ask questions about scenarios based upon, let's say, for example, now, if you had heard or seen something that you didn't like within work, what would you do? So, we want to gauge what your response is, what your understanding of the multidisciplinary team is, for example. So my interviews are split between the two sections there. So you've got the first section where I'm asking about our BUPA values and, things that would, make us really, really be keen to see you, to interview. I ask questions on the clinical knowledge base as a second one as well. So don't be afraid is my biggest thing. Don't be afraid and don't be nervous. I'm really not a horrible headmaster or anything like that. I like to talk.
Okay, next question. As a nurse with theatre in brackets scrub experience, can I apply for a job as an ODP?
No. So being a nurse and being an ODP, they are considered as what's called protected titles. So
Mhm.
if you are a nurse, you have that protected title of being a nurse. So you can call yourself a nurse. If you're an ODP, you have that protected title of being an ODP. So you can call yourself an ODP.
Yeah.
But the difference is that with the two titles, because they're protected, you can't then call yourself vice versa. So an ODP can't call himself a nurse because you're an ODP. A nurse can't call themselves an ODP because they're a nurse. But what we do now say within theatres, and a lot of hospitals now have this blanket term that we call, it would be a scrub practitioner or a anaesthetic practitioner. So that is a term that holds for ODPs working in anaesthetics and also nurses working in anaesthetics. So we would say that you are an anaesthetic practitioner, and it would be the same with scrub. So you wouldn't be an ODP, you would still be a scrub nurse or be called a scrub practitioner, much like an ODP would either be called a scrub ODP or a scrub practitioner.
Okay, cool. Thank you for clarifying that. A gentleman's come back again and asked, my question is, where can one get to train to get a job as an ODP? So where could they do their training?
So there are courses that do the ODP training all around the country in the UK. So for example, you can train in Scotland, you can train in Midlands, you can train in London. So my best advice would be to type into Google operating department practice, and then you'll see a range of different universities that offer the course. It will be highly dependent on your location. If that is, what's really important to you. For example, if you live in London and you didn't want to leave London, then you would be looking more so at any universities within London that offer the course. Or if you were living elsewhere, or if you were willing to travel, then, you might live in London, but want to go and train up in Scotland, get a change of scenery. So it's really dependent on where the area that you want to go and where you want to be. But yeah, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of information out there that you could do to become an ODP. With the training as well, just one thing to mention. So years ago, ODPs could do a 2-year diploma. And now the ODPs have moved now in terms of the education. It's moved towards a 3-year Bachelor of Science degree. So you will find the odd few universities that might still offer the diploma, but the majority of universities are now moving to a 3-year degree to complete the operating department practice.
Amazing. And final question, why did you personally choose and continue to prefer anaesthetics instead of surgical scrubs or recovery?
I'm gonna have to be really honest with you guys. Surgical scrub when I really need to go to the toilet. It's hard when you're scrubbed at the table, and that really wasn't my forte. I like to be able to go to the loo when I can do. I really don't have a strong enough bladder for it. But no, anesthetics was just my passion in terms of it gave me the most patient interaction with them being awake. So that's really what I enjoyed most about it. So in recovery, you do get a lot of patient interaction as well, don't get me wrong. But in anesthetics, I think it's the fact that you have your own autonomy.
Yeah.
So you are working alongside the anesthetic consultant, don't get me wrong, but you are the beginning and the end at the end of the day. You're there from the start, you're there at the end, and everything in your anesthetic room is there because of you. So that you don't have anyone else to rely on. So you have to have the 5 Ps. Otherwise, you're not going to get everything ready. So working in scrub, if you're the type of person that really likes to work in a larger team, then that's perfectly fine as well. I do like working in a larger team also, but anesthetics was just my calling mainly for that patient interaction when they're awake. I love working in pediatrics, making the kids smile and so on and so forth. And I get that from anesthetics.
Oh, that's nice. That's really, really nice. And That's it, ma'am. Thank you so much. That was absolutely brilliant. I know Joe is with us in the background as well, because he's told me his mic is now working again. But I will say, Joe, brilliant introduction, and Mehn, thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy Sunday evening. As you said, you're still at work.
Yeah.
So hopefully you will go home soon and rest, ready for a busy Monday again, I am sure. But guys, everyone who joined, thank you so much for joining. If you've got any questions, please email hello@minimatch.io, and if you want to direct them to Mehn, we can always forward them over to him and introduce you, and I'm sure he will be happy to answer any questions if needed. And again, it has been recorded, so if any of you guys if you jumped in late, or if you've got any friends you want to share the recording with, it will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel. So Mehn will be joining everybody else on our YouTube. But again, thank you so much, Mehn. That was brilliant. And I hope you all have a lovely evening.
Yeah. Thank you so much to everybody. Thank you for taking the time out.
Thank you so much. I'm going to leave it now and close it down. That was brilliant. Thanks, Mehn.
Bye-bye now.
Take care.